Afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast, fooding on a rye, a baker who is always tortured, and I want to welcome you now for our third episode. Today's focus is going to be Hanukkah foods, Hanukkah stories, so we hope you'll join in. Get on site here at J Moore and throw in your questions. And our guest today, and I'm thrilled to have him here, is Josh Hershkovitz of Hersh's restaurant, but it used to be Hersh's Pizza, but he does so much more Italian cuisine. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
We had talked earlier about Hanukkah and how you grew up in out of Owings Mills, and how did your family celebrate Hanukkah?
Very traditional household. Always sang the same songs after lighting the menorah every time. And now when we'd have friends over, they're so surprised that as a family we're so well rehearsed. We launch into each of the songs right after, and it's like almost a production. But lighting the menorah every night. My parents were definitely of the school of spoil us, so there was a gift each of the 8 nights, which was great as a child. Now it's something I push back against a little bit with my own kids about trying not to too much for 8 nights. My mother always making latkes. Fantastic latkes. She used to come into my class at school when I was growing up to do latkes for our class. Right. This year she went into both my kids' classes to do it also, which they were very excited about.
Well, didn't you told me you did something last year with Ob Shalom. You had kids come into the restaurant?
So they have a teenager group that when they've sort of grown out of Sunday school age, it's like they go to different workplaces, different events, to see sort of things out in the field. So we did, around Hanukkah time, we did I had them come into the restaurant and we did some, not necessarily Hanukkah foods only, but also Jewish foods from all over the world. Talked about how, the link between Jewish food and Italian food, because I'm Jewish, but we have an Italian restaurant. And as we were speaking before, you and I, there's a lot of links there.
About the family table. It's
sure.
Very important. Now, you said your mother's latkes, but we talked earlier, you said your father-in-law's latkes also are good, but they're different.
Yeah. Now you're going to get me in trouble.
You shouldn't tell me.
There's a debate going on. My mother makes she makes a fantastic potato kugel, and the recipe for her latkes is almost the same. Very simple, but they're grated. It's like finer, almost Bellini style. My father-in-law, and my wife and I, 10 years will be our anniversary will be 10 years this coming October, but I guess 12 years we've known each other, and every year going, and her father makes it, and he's known for his, and it's a shredded and it's a different style, and they've talked for a long time about having a latke off.
They're larger.
They're larger, and they're the shredded style as opposed to like grated, so it's like a little
it's a
more texture to it, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you feel like size matters?
In some things. So we do latkes at the restaurant every year, and this is the controversial part, I've adopted his style a little bit, because while hers are fantastic, they're best right out of the pan, and when you're in a restaurant, you're prepping and doing this and that, so that shredded style actually, I feel like, lasts a little bit better, and we're able to get a little crispier as we're serving it to the guests, so sorry, Mom. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's the schmaltz.
Yeah.
And trying to be better as I get older, I use the oil, but I throw some of the schmaltz in. You got to have that flavor in there. But mine are paper thin, and I love salt on it. But are you applesauce or are you sour cream?
I like to mix them both together. If I had to choose, I would say sour cream, because we're salty just like you. We never had the schmaltz in there really, because we're traditional, grew up in a traditional household, but we definitely kept kosher in the house, and so if we were going to have like sour cream with the latkes, it was almost always a dairy meal, and so a lot of you can put schmaltz in. A lot of people though think brisket is a food you eat on Hanukkah with latkes, but it was always a dairy tradition in our house. So smoked salmon, bagels, and then latkes with sour cream.
Okay, well, you're doing the potato latkes for the 8 days of Hanukkah. Except for Tuesday. Is it Tuesday?
We're closed on Tuesdays.
Closed on Tuesday. So you get 7 days, and you say you use smoked salmon or smoked fish?
Yeah, we make it all ourselves in-house. So I'll either do a smoked trout or a cured salmon, like a gravlax. We make our own creme fraiche. I like to, not everybody likes this, but I like to top it with a little bit of fish roe. Just I feel like that little salty blast at the end is
and that pop.
It's like, yes, and that pop, it's like...
The pop. Yeah. It's that textural thing it adds to it. Let's tell people where you're located. You're on Light Street down by on the corner of Wells and Light.
Light and Wells.
Right,
yeah.
and that's Riverside. That is at the foot of South Light Street.
Yep, it's all the way at the end. You can see 95 like from our front door. So it's all the way at the south end, right by the Hanover Street exit off 95.
And we were talking about your wood-burning stove down there. And initially you started off with the Neapolitan pizzas. And you were telling me a really great trick to reheat pizza.
You know, we cook our pies in we say it's 800 degrees. It's a very hot oven. Our pies cook in about 90 seconds. But, heating up at home, a lot of people throw it in the oven. And I'd done some reading online and found out that the best way scientifically, I will fight people on this, put your pizza in a pan on the stovetop with a lid on top. It crisps the bottom up. It re-gelatinizes the crust so it's nice and airy, and then it kind of steams the top so your cheese is nice and gooey and not dried out in the oven. And I tell our guests at the restaurant about this all the time. Just try it out, and they come back like, Josh, I didn't come up with it. I follow it now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a great tip, because definitely the microwave kills it, and
Yeah, sure.
it just doesn't work in the oven. I'll put it in the toaster oven. So that's something that I can do, and that the listeners now and those who come back and watch the video will be able to do.
Cool.
With Hanukkah, my parents, I came from a very reformed home. And as a child, for Hanukkah and Christmas, always run close together. I was a little greedy. Okay, we had the 8 days of Hanukkah, but I wanted Christmas. So my sister and I, at some point, when we lived down in Sequoia Avenue, which meant I was, like 8 or 9, something along that, put socks up on the mantelpiece for holidays. And understand we're reformed, but for some reason it set my mother off. And when we came down the next morning, she had put cigarette butts in ashes.
Well, yeah.
And she sent her message, we never hung socks again for that.
Surprised, yeah.
But very reformed. We were talking about your Italian food. You did some studying, or you did some research on how Hanukkah is celebrated around the world. I know if we think Italian in the Trastevere area, there it's more everything's fried, because the Maccabees, they had olive oil, and it lasted 8 days. So fried foods are, that's where they'll, maybe, they didn't have potatoes back then. That came in later.
No, but that's where that whole tradition comes from, right? The cooking stuff in oil, celebrating that. And it's funny you mentioned Rome, because when I mentioned that class, I was teaching kids about, how food sort of moves around the world. That is the oldest Jewish community outside of Israel was in Rome. And at the Hanukkah story, the way that ties into it, the Maccabees, Matisyahu, actually, they made a pact with the Romans at the time there, and that's how they actually finally defeated the Assyrians in that story. So it's funny you mentioned that. But yes, that's what a lot of stuff fried in oil, besides the latkes, it's the donuts, the sufganiyot.
Thank you for saying that. I told Josh earlier, I said I didn't even know how to pronounce sufganiyot, and I had to go on the internet and listen to it and keep repeating it, and it's in my notes here. But he said it so much better than me. I'm thrilled with that. The fried artichokes are something that, Rome is known for, and I think came out of the Trastevere area. Brisket, how does your brisket get made at home for Hanukkah?
So we don't do it for Hanukkah, because if we're doing, the latkes with sour cream, into it. But, my grandmother, my mother have one style of doing, and it's funny, like I've completely adopted more of a Texas style of doing my own brisket. I used to want to have a wood oven, at home, and thought, what, I work on that all the time at the restaurant. I do not want to see that at home, but I had a smoker built at home. And so my brisket is like you're in Texas. I mean, it's not a level of Franklin barbecue, but it's that's how we.
I'm sure it's good. I actually, when I do my brisket, I sort of throw in everything Italian.
Yeah.
Pesto, if it isn't nailed down, it goes in, bay leaves, whatever. I just throw it in and I braise it for 2.5 to 3 hours, let it set, and it's good to go. Let's talk about what you're doing. You're open Christmas Eve, but closed Christmas Day.
So Christmas Eve this year is on a Tuesday, so we're closed on Christmas Eve. and we're closed Christmas Day.
Right.
But the great thing, people say when you're in a restaurant, you don't get holidays off, this or that. Because we're closed Tuesday this year, New Year's Eve is on a Tuesday. And myself and my sister, who's my partner there, and all our staff is very happy to, for the first time, and they don't know how many years, have off on New Year's Eve.
So you're sticking with that. You're not opening up special for New Year's Eve.
No, I know a lot of restaurateurs feel there's certain days that like make the restaurant, Valentine's Day, different times.
Mother's Day.
New Year's Eve is one of them. And we feel that way, but also, we also know, we think a lot about the healthy like work-life balance, and I feel like we could open on New Year's Eve definitely, but we like to have that time off with our families, and my staff is so thrilled that New Year's Eve off, and so it's on a Tuesday.
So they'll be at somebody else's restaurant.
Yeah,
I want to. I know that you're doing the latkes at your restaurant on the other side of the town. If people are looking to go out for Hanukkah. Gunther and Company is doing something for Hanukkah. So they're on the other side of town. But you come to Josh, you get the latkes, and then you get, a pizza afterwards or something like that. But you do some fabulous pastas. I looked at that. I'm like a linguine and clam person.
Okay.
I go, wherever I go, I try it out. So right now, Esca in New York, as the best.
Yeah.
If anybody's going out for linguine and clams, but I haven't tasted yours. You might.
No, yeah, we do a tagliolini with clam, so it's a little bit thinner than the linguine, but we make all our pasta in house, and it's just got just the right bite to it. When you make the fresh pasta, it cooks much shorter time. But ours is super traditional. There's not, any sort of clam juice in it. It's made with real clams. So sometimes people will say, "Oh, it's so brine." Like that's what a clam tastes like. That clam releasing its essence into the pot is just such a bright. We have that on right now, and it's probably my favorite pasta of the year.
I have to come by.
Yeah.
I have to just
come
in one night, and I can sit at the bar and just down it. That would be great. In the news, and you were talking about this before, this new collective that's under discussion down by you, that's going to be, there's assuming it's going to be a brewery, it's going to be a restaurant, it's going to be a coffee shop, and you've sort of talked with them, but can you fill us in a little bit more? No,
I saw the articles in the Sun, there's a new development. So this was an old, I think it was a slaughter plant and a slaughtering house and a textile factory. And, there's, just like with so many of these old buildings in town, they're trying to redevelop this. Hersh's, we've been there 8 years, and it's, this is our best year yet. Each year has been better than the year before. And I feel like there's more families moving in. So this looks like an area ripe for development. We've had a few restaurants recently come down by us, and,
And unfortunately, they didn't make it.
Well, a lot of folks are very much of the opinion that, competition, but I feel like competition in an area is
always good.
It's a great thing. You get people down to an area. It becomes an area for walking around. And, I met somebody earlier today who'd said before I came in, because they want to have a party at our restaurant, and said, I hadn't heard of Hersh's before. And I said, yeah, my wife, she'll say, so-and-so hasn't heard of Hersh's. And I'm like, that's a great thing, actually. I feel like, we're 8 years in, and there's still more market to expand into. There's still, ways to get word out. But I feel like, this new development, I feel like everything new in the area helps, grow the whole market for everybody and lifts the area up. There's more jobs there. There's more options for people to come out. It brings more people down, so it's not as much of a dark area at night.
I've enjoyed being down there. We talked about the new flowers. I was reading an article. This is because we're coming up to New Year's and people having parties, that the 10 things that you shouldn't do when you're going to a party. And one, being rude. One, show up early, stay too long, ask for food that hasn't been eaten. And I had a situation when my husband passed like 3.5 years ago, and the restaurant industry just came, I don't know, it's an outpouring, and I had tons of food. And some woman said, my son's never had this before. Can I take some home with me? And I looked at her, and I just felt it was inappropriate, but of course, here, I have plenty.
Right, sure.
Eat,
yeah.
enjoy. He should try it.
Yeah.
He should try it. And right now also launching into politics is rude, not RSVPing, spilling food, not bringing food to a potluck. Oh, no, don't come in with that apple pie from the 7-Eleven. That doesn't work either. What I wanted also to talk about, local news, we have Lexington Market's going to be refurbished, and unfortunately we're losing Mary Mervis, which for I don't know how many years has been in Lexington Market. Fabulous delicatessen, great sandwiches, and they will be missed. And we were talking about, the word has just come out that the actor Russell Crowe is writing and also starring in a movie about the chef in England, Marco Pierre White.
I didn't realize he was writing it too. Okay.
Yeah, he's writing it, and he's going to star as this bad boy chef. And you
That's
had some feelings about that.
I think so. I didn't realize he was writing it too, and Russell Crowe is Australian, right? And that's where Marco Pierre White lives now, I think.
Oh, really?
I don't think I could be getting that completely wrong, but I was, in reading about him. No, I mean, I've read, his biography or his autobiography, and while he did a lot of great things in the restaurant world, he also, there's this image of this, male toxicity in the kitchen, this chest beating and this, if you're not super tough and working 13 to 14-hour shifts, you're not going to make it anywhere in the industry. And it's, I think that hurts the industry more than anything else. I think it drives people away from it. It kind of singles out people who are underspoken and, want to just do their work. If you're not the one beating your chest, then you're somehow not one of the best ones in the kitchen. And I don't ever think that bravado really stands in for just great skill and technique in the kitchen. But
yeah, he was, there are many stories, and we talked about it. Mario Batali was in there and doing a stagiaire, and he had made risotto. And he took it over, or Marco came over and looked at it, and it wasn't any good. He took the hot pot and the risotto and threw it on Mario Batali. Batali then goes over to these large pots of mother sauces and pulls down the salt and puts handfuls of salt into the mother sauces. And there was, I think, in White Heat, he talked about Gordon Ramsay being in the kitchen and making him cry. And I think he took a knife to the back of Ramsay's chef's coat and ripped it up with a chef's knife. There's many stories, and it's, outstanding as to capturing your attention. But the reality of it is that's not what kitchens are like anymore. That top toke to medium toke and going down.
Yeah, no, it's changed a lot. And I don't think that has really any place in the kitchen. It's there's definitely kitchens that are like that still, but it's more of a throwback. There's still this pressure, like if you're not working this many hours, that you're not really putting it in. But no, that's I'm glad that's going away. The same way. Besides that bravado, there's a lot of the Me Too movement that was wrapped up in a lot of kitchen. There's a lot of harassment, not just with women, but also male chefs who may be understated and get made fun of for other different types of things. That it's just this toxic environment, bullying, a lot of bullying. Yeah. The way my kitchen, and they know how I feel, that if I do not have an attitude about the food or about what's going on in there, none of them have the right to have this attitude. Nobody remembers, that so-and-so in the kitchen made this, and, they remember that they had a great experience, and it's so much easier to work in concert and make a great meal for everybody when you respect the people that work around you and you help them out. I hear time and again at Hersh's, if people are leaving to go and do something else, something they really enjoyed was that they always had, somebody helping them out. People would finish their prep. Hey, do you need a hand with anything? And I feel like it should be collaborative like every other field.
It really is a team.
Sure.
Front of house, back of house, and you must work together to get it out there. And there's nothing tougher than the restaurant industry because everybody's taste is different.
Sure.
And somebody can come in and put something on Yelp. This was not any good, and in reality, it's what they grew up with, and they don't know any different.
Right.
What I wanted to do right now is just tell people that we're not going to have a show next week because we have people here who want to enjoy their holiday. So we will be back January 2nd, and we're going to have hopefully Bruce White here. He's a coffee aficionado from Perfect Brew Services. Do you know him?
Yeah. I mean, he fixed my espresso machine. Yeah.
He sets these all up, but he knows the quality of beans. He's lived all over the world, and I think he'll be coming on with his daughter, who's part of the business.
Chan.
And we're everything you wanted to know about coffee, but we're afraid to ask. And also to remind you that the Food Enthusiast is open to advertisers. Not only do we talk about your copy and what you want to promote during the show multiple times, but the framework for our show on video will have your name stamped on there as well. And of course, it always goes up onto the J Moore page. And what else can I talk about? Let's see. I'm reading my notes, everybody. If you see me looking down, I'm going to try to raise it and look here.
I know we had spoken about some new food trends, for the new year.
Yes. What are you seeing as the food trends?
I mean, one thing I'm hoping is not a food trend is I love vegetables. I love eating real things. And, there's been a controversy this week even about, these plant-based meat substitutes. I'm all about a plant-based diet, but a plant-based, I don't understand that. But then, the thing that I think bothers me a little bit more than that is, it actually is not the way to, help the environment and help your health. Yes, there's no meat in it, but there's all these other Franken ingredients that make it, a little scary.
It's a Frankenburger.
Yeah.
And, I see vegetarian growth in a lot of things.
100%,
the younger people are definitely going vegan and vegetarian, though I like my good piece of meat. But that's, if my arteries are going to close, I've already done it. So
no, I like that too, but I think it's also, and I hope this continues to be a trend, is really paying attention to where you're sourcing your protein. At Hersh's, we do so much work trying to, source great meat. We use Rosetta beef up in Moncton. They, grass aged comes. Yeah, they do it. They do a great job. Our lamb comes from Elysian Field Farm, but they coddle these lamb. I mean, it's well raised. It's not pumped full of all sorts of stuff that you can't pronounce that you don't want to eat. So I think it's fine to eat meat, but I feel like it's also like vegetables are so good for you.
Right. Yeah. Well, you want to pass that on to your children too, and set that up.
We work hard on that at home.
Well, I want to thank everybody who's tuned in. We've had some great responses to our show. The first show had over 1,900 views, and then last week we had Jason Hisley on from Cake by Jason, and then we're already over 1,400 views. And I'm waiting to see, what's going to happen here with Hersh and Talking Hanukkah. I wish some of you would have sent in some of your Hanukkah memories. I want to take this time to wish everybody the best of the holiday season, whatever it might be, joy, happiness, and remind you that we hope that you'll join us on January 2nd and every Thursday thereafter at 12:30 for our show. May your plates always be full. Thank you. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the Food Enthusiast.